In 1941, every ship crossing the Atlantic carried something Britain desperately needed: food, fuel, weapons. Without those ships, Britain could not survive. The island nation produced only a fraction of the food it needed. Most supplies came from across the ocean, from Canada, from America, from anywhere that could send help. And every one of those ships had to cross a battlefield. The Atlantic Ocean, a battlefield where the enemy was invisible. Because beneath the waves, German submarines were waiting. In real history, Britain survived the Battle of the Atlantic. Barely, but if just a few things had gone differently, the ocean itself could have become Germany's greatest weapon, and Britain might have starved. When France fell in 1940, Britain suddenly found itself alone. Germany controlled nearly all of Western Europe. British troops had escaped to Dunkirk, but they left behind most of their equipment. Factories worked day and night to rebuild the army, but factories needed resources: steel, fuel, rubber, food, and most of those supplies had to cross the Atlantic. If those shipments stopped, Britain would collapse without a single German soldier ever landing on its shores.
The Atlantic lifeline is cut. No invasion needed.
Hitler understood this. He didn't necessarily need to invade Britain. He only needed to choke it. Germany's weapon for that task was the U-boat. Submarines designed to hunt merchant ships. Unlike battleships, submarines didn't need to fight powerful fleets. They only needed to find unprotected cargo vessels. One torpedo could sink thousands of tons of supplies. One submarine could disrupt entire shipping routes. Early in the war, U-boats proved terrifyingly effective.
Early 1942. The convoys are striking a vital cargo ship.
Convoys of merchant ships were ambushed in the dark. Torpedoes struck silently. Ships burned in the cold Atlantic night. Survivors clung to lifeboats, while the ocean swallowed everything else. In real history, Britain eventually found ways to fight back. Convoy systems improved, escort ships increased, radar and sonar technology advanced.
270, depth 200.
Most importantly, American industry produced huge numbers of ships. Even when Germany sank them, new ones replaced them. Slowly, the balance shifted. The Atlantic became safer. Britain survived, but that survival depended on fragile advantages. And if those advantages disappeared, the outcome could have been very different. In this timeline, Germany makes one critical change early in the war.
Diese Routen sind verwundbar. U-Boot hier konzentrieren. Ja, mein Führer, die Geleitzüge nach Großbritannien. Ändern Sie die Patrouillen sofort.
Instead of focusing heavily on battleships and surface fleets, Hitler invests almost entirely in submarines. German industry builds U-boats in enormous numbers. Hundreds become thousands. Wolfpack tactics improve. Communication between submarines becomes faster and more coordinated.
U-99 U-45 confirmed. Moving to intercept.
The Atlantic becomes crowded with predators. By early 1941, merchant ships begin disappearing faster than expected. Entire convoys vanish. British naval escorts struggle to keep up. Every time a convoy is attacked, several ships are lost, sometimes 10, sometimes 20. The losses begin to outpace Britain's ability to replace them. And worse, American production is not yet fully mobilized, because the United States is not officially at war. Across the Atlantic, American leaders watch the crisis unfold.
Gentlemen, the Atlantic is a graveyard. We must reinforce these convoy routes immediately. U-boats sank 12 more last week. The losses are staggering.
President Roosevelt wants to support Britain, but public opinion is divided. Many Americans still believe the war in Europe is not their fight. American ships begin escorting convoys partway across the Atlantic, but they cannot patrol the entire ocean. The most dangerous stretch becomes known as the Black Pit, an area too far from air bases for aircraft to protect ships. Inside this gap, German U-boats hunt freely, and ships die there every week. In real history, long-range aircraft eventually closed the Black Pit, but in this timeline, those aircraft arrived too late. German submarines dominate the gap for months longer than expected. Every convoy passing through suffers heavy losses. Food shipments decrease, fuel shipments shrink. The flow of war supplies slows dramatically. Britain begins rationing more severely. Rationing had already existed, but now it becomes extreme. Bread, meat, fuel, even basic necessities become scarce. Long lines form outside shops. Factories struggle to maintain production. Civilian morale weakens because people understand something frightening. If the ocean cannot be crossed safely, Britain cannot be supplied. And without supplies, the war cannot continue. German naval commanders begin to understand what is happening. The submarine war is working. Every month, British imports shrink. Every month, British industry slows. Every month, Britain grows weaker. And the most powerful part of the strategy is this: Germany does not need to defeat Britain directly, it only needs to isolate it. By late 1942, the numbers become catastrophic. More ships are sunk than built. Convoys begin turning back before reaching Europe. Insurance companies refuse to cover merchant voyages.
Look at these losses. We can't sustain this. It's too dangerous.
Shipping routes collapse. Britain's lifeline is breaking. Churchill understands the situation clearly. Without Atlantic supply routes, Britain cannot continue the war much longer. When Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, the United States finally enters World War II. But even now, controlling the Atlantic becomes the top priority.
The U-boats are overwhelming our mid-Atlantic routes. We must reroute the convoys north.
Because if Britain falls before America can mobilize, Germany wins Europe. And without Britain as a base, invading the continent becomes almost impossible. American shipyards begin building Liberty ships at incredible speed. Destroyers escort convoys across the ocean. Aircraft patrol the skies. But Germany responds with even more submarines, new torpedoes, improved coordination. The ocean becomes the largest battlefield on Earth. For a terrifying moment in 1943, the situation nearly collapses. Several massive convoys are destroyed. Hundreds of ships sink in a matter of weeks. Food reserves in Britain reach dangerous levels. Military planners begin discussing emergency measures.
Routes are shrinking. We must reroute immediately. U-boats here and here. We need escorts now. Sir, losses are critical. Air support?
If the shipping lanes fail completely, Britain may have to negotiate peace. If Germany had successfully controlled the Atlantic Ocean, the consequences would have been enormous. Britain might have been forced out of the war. Without Britain, there would be no launching point for D-Day. American forces would have nowhere to invade Europe from. Germany could focus entirely on the Soviet Union. The entire balance of World War II would shift. History remembers the Allied victory as inevitable. But the Battle of the Atlantic proves something different. Victory depended on supply ships, convoys, destroyers, submarines, and thousands of sailors crossing the most dangerous ocean in the world. If Germany had gained just a little more control, if the Atlantic had truly belonged to the U-boats, Britain might never have survived long enough to win the war, because sometimes the fate of nations isn't decided by tanks or armies. Sometimes it's decided by ships crossing a dark ocean. And if those ships stop coming, even the strongest country can starve.